Hey everyone, and welcome to RUBIN'S Mind Lab, where we break down the latest research into what it really means. Ever wonder if being a little bit moody actually makes you more creative? The classic mad genius idea. Well, this new study dives deep into that, and the answer might surprise you. Today we're talking about a fascinating paper that takes on the age-old idea of the mad genius, that artists and creators need to be a bit unstable, or even suffering to produce their best work. It is a romantic image, right? The tortured artist. But does it hold up to scientific scrutiny? This research suggests it might be a lot more complicated, and perhaps even harmful. To believe that the core question here is whether emotional instability truly fuels creativity, or if it is actually something else entirely that is at play. Think about it, we often hear stories about famous artists who struggled with mental health issues. It's easy to connect those dots and think that the struggles caused the genius. But scientists wonder, is it the instability itself? Or are there other factors making these things seem connected? The researchers here wanted to find out if things like how happy someone is with their life, their overall sense of well-being, and how much psychological distress they're feeling actually act as middlemen or mediators in this relationship. In other words, does emotional instability lead to lower well-being, and that in turn affects how creative someone feels they are? The study focuses on professional performing artists, musicians, actors, dancers, and comedians. Why them? Because this mad genius stereotype is particularly strong in artistic fields. And if the stereotype is wrong, it could be stopping artists from getting help because they fear it will harm their creativity. The researchers wanted to test this idea. Could feeling good about your life actually be a boost to your creative confidence, even if you tend to experience mood swings? So, how did they try to figure this out? They gathered a group of 201 professional performing artists. These artists were making a living from their art. They weren't just dabbling, this was their career. The researchers had them fill out several questionnaires. They measured emotional instability using something called Cyclothymic Temperament, which essentially means a tendency for rapid, unpredictable mood swings. They also measured life satisfaction, which is basically how happy people are with their lives overall. Then they measured psychological distress, looking at symptoms of anxiety and depression. And finally, they measured creative self-beliefs. This isn't about how creative someone is, but how much they believe they are creative. It is about their confidence in their own creative abilities. They used a powerful statistical tool called structural equation modeling to look at how all these pieces fit together, essentially building a map of how these different factors influence each other. Now, let's get to the exciting part. What did they find? This is where the mad genius myth really starts to unravel. First, they confirmed that people with more emotional instability tended to report higher levels of psychological distress, like anxiety and depression. This part isn't too surprising, as it aligns with what we often observe. But here is the key finding regarding life satisfaction. Emotional instability was actually negatively linked to how satisfied people were with their lives. So, if you tend to have mood swings, you're likely to feel less happy with your life overall. Then they looked at how these well-being factors related to creative self-beliefs. And here is where it gets really interesting. They found that higher life satisfaction was strongly linked to stronger creative self-beliefs. Basically, if artists felt good about their lives, they felt more confident in their ability to be creative. But here is the kicker. Psychological distress, that anxiety and depression we talked about, it wasn't significantly linked to creative self-beliefs. It didn't seem to boost or hinder how creative artists felt they were. This is crucial. The study found that emotional instability didn't have a direct positive impact on creative self-beliefs. No direct link there. Instead, the main way emotional instability seemed to affect creative self-beliefs was indirectly, and specifically through lower life satisfaction. So, emotional instability makes you less happy with your life, and that makes you feel less confident in your creativity. So, what does this mean for the mad genius myth? It means the myth is probably wrong. The researchers are saying that it is not the suffering or the mood swings themselves that make you creative. Instead, it is your overall sense of well-being, particularly how satisfied you are with your life. That seems to play a much bigger role in how confident you feel about your creative abilities. Feeling good about your life appears to be more important for creative confidence than the stormy emotional weather. The study highlights that for professional artists, emotional instability might actually be a bit of a double-edged sword. It can be linked to distress, but its main connection to creative self-beliefs comes through its negative impact on life satisfaction. So, while the romantic notion of the suffering artist might persist, the science suggests that a happier, more satisfied artist is likely to feel more confident in their creative power. Now, like all good science, this study has its strengths and limitations. A big strength is that they focused specifically on professional performing artists. This is a unique group that can be hard to study because of their demanding schedules and lifestyle. They managed to recruit a decent number of participants, considering the difficulty. However, there are limitations. The sample, while focused, was heavily skewed towards musicians. So the findings might reflect the experiences of musicians more than actors or dancers. Also, because the study was cross-sectional, meaning they looked at data at one point in time. They can't definitively say that emotional instability causes lower life satisfaction, which then impacts creative self-beliefs. It shows a strong association, but future studies with a longitudinal design tracking people over time would be even better to establish cause and effect. So, what is the takeaway here? The mad genius myth is likely just that, a myth, or at least a gross oversimplification. It suggests that suffering is not a prerequisite for feeling capable of creativity. Instead, personal well-being, especially life satisfaction, seems to be the key. This is important because it means supporting artists' mental health. And their overall happiness isn't just a nice thing to do. It could actually be crucial for their creative confidence and well-being in their careers. It implies that interventions aimed at boosting life satisfaction could be incredibly beneficial for artists, helping them feel more confident in their creative abilities, regardless of their temperamental tendencies. It shifts the focus from a romanticized, potentially harmful narrative of suffering to a more practical and supportive understanding of how artists thrive. This research really opens our eyes to the idea that when it comes to creativity and our inner world, it is often the nuances, the mediating factors, like feeling good about your life, that truly make a difference. It's a reminder that well-being and creativity aren't always at odds. They can actually support each other. What do you think about these findings? Does this change your perception of the tortured artist? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and if you found this breakdown helpful, please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to RUBIN'S Mind Lab for more science explained simply, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next episode. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.